Start spreading the news. Old world's here to stay. You want to be a part of it. That old world charm.
Hello and welcome to the very, very, very first episode of That Old World Charm podcast. My name is Adam Camilleri and I'm joined by the two lovely, lovely gents who have joined me on this amazing journey. Peter, the Falcon Colosimo. Hello, mate. Welcome. Starting off strong, I see. Well done, Peter.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Danny, Danny McDevitt, can you do any better?
I don't have to. I mean, I literally just have to talk and it's going to be better than that. So
just two-fist dunk broke the backboard on Peter.
You definitely did. Like, we're beginning on the wrong foot as always.
No other way would I like to start this endeavor. Yeah. This is the very first episode. This is the introductory episode to our brand new podcast that I've started with these two wonderful gentlemen. We are here to essentially start a whole new old world content creation train that you guys can hopefully jump on with us. This episode is going to be mostly outlining the modus operandi for what you can come to expect from our brand, from our content, where you can go to get a little bit more of it, where you can join in and get involved yourself, and also telling you a little bit about ourselves. And the spiciest thing is we're going to give you guys our hot takes on this old world rule set, because the crazy thing to know about this triumvirate that we brought together is all three of us have been sitting with these rules for some weeks already. So we have a little bit of a head start. So sometimes on each other as well. We'll be throwing out, oh, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And that's been most of the last weeks, just an absolute rabble, shambles. But gentlemen, what do you guys want to tell people about this show, Danny? What are you excited about to bring to the masses?
You know, I think all of us come from a pretty unique, kind of background here. Like all of us played fantasy competitively in this last iteration. All of us really like fantasy, so I think we're bringing a lot of our joy to this endeavor, and I think that that'll come through naturally when you hear us talk about the game. And then finally, I think that we're in kind of a unique position here, where based on our experience and based on that joy, like we can provide some of the best takes for what's going on and kind of some analysis for the tournament scene, you know, based on our experience in this game and also a lot of other games. So I'm really excited to kind of take this step.
What about yourself, Peter?
I mean, I'm with Danny 100%. You know, all three of us, like he said, do have like a background playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle competitively for some time. On top of that, all three of us have been kind of heavily invested in other miniature war games like Warhammer 40K, dabbled in other ones like Infinity or Age of Sigmar, etc. And like, we're very passionate about it. We've got a number of WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and Messenger groups where basically the three of us plus, you know, a handful of others have just been talking nonstop about Warhammer Fantasy Battle and the old world since the announcement, because it's been such an exciting thing. And, you know, we do have the benefit of, you know, each one of us having early access to rules. And, you know, that does, you know, give us a couple of extra weeks or months to see the bigger picture before it comes out. Not to say we're going to be right 100% of the time, because we can't play thousands of games like, you know, the greater populace can within a very short period of time. But yeah, like we have insight, I think, into what's going on. And I'm just a really excitable person.
Building upon that early access stuff, I believe, leaves us with a burden of responsibility to disseminate and distribute as much of that information as freaking possible. We are here, and one of the biggest modus operandi of this is to be a show where you can come and stay informed about the game. I have another program for 40K where I do it's going to be, this program is going to be very similar to the one I do over there, where I try and be, and that show tries to be the place where you can just come and listen and stay current. Because if Warhammer the Old World is anything like a bunch of the other games that the Games Workshop doing at the moment, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40K, it is very hard to keep up. It is very hard to stay current and know about everything that's being released, what this does, what that does. We're also going to, in addition to reviewing new products, new content, new factions, new rules, new missions, new all these things. Oh my God, I'm so excited. But we're also going to be just talking some crap, being as entertaining as we can, and also telling you guys about, what's winning, what's losing, what's doing well for us in our personal games and in the wider world. In addition, just discussing the hot topics of the day. This unit is too good. How should it be changed? What, as we as a community, could possibly be doing? And there is so much to unpack that we could literally have this first episode go for 4 hours. We're going to be doing this as a one-hit episode to come out to the general populace, introduce you guys to us, the three heads of this beast. And then our intent moving forward is to have weekly episodes, which are in 2 parts. First part, which will forever be free. And if we are reviewing content for the game of Warhammer the Old World, as in if we are unpacking what High Elves do, that will forever be free. If you are going to be listening to us reviewing a product or a rule set, that will forever be free. But we do have a Patreon, which will be, it's going to be called That Old World Charm over there. If you want to go check it out now, it's live for you if you want to get involved. There's going to be a whole second half to every episode, which will be a minimum of 35 to 45 minutes, most likely a lot more than that because we are absolute psychopaths. And that's going to be our thoughts, our feelings, our misgivings, what we love, what we do not love about anything we have reviewed, the game as it stands at the moment, and a lot more candid chat over there. So if you are all invested in there, and there's nothing right there right now, but later this week, our very first fully fledged episode will be coming out. And if you want to get ahead of it, you can find it over there. And most likely, those episodes will be released possibly 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours early over on the Patreon as well. We do have intent to have a Discord set up also. And you will, we'll be encouraging a burgeoning community therein. But yeah, if you do want to get involved at this early stage for whatever reason, even though there's nothing there for you to be purchasing, there hopefully will be later this week. That is That Old World Charm over on Patreon. But so I'm just going to sell you guys a little bit on the 3 of us. So whilst all 3 of us played Warhammer 8th edition and previous editions very competitively, we have not been sitting on our haunches just like, oh man, can't wait for the old world to happen. Oh geez. We have all been doing and creating amazing things. I'm going to hand pass this one straight back to Danny, who is on a couple of different podcasts, a couple of different networks, and in his own right is also quite a successful Warhammer 40k player.
I guess, yeah. I'm only on one right now. I'm just do Grim After Dark. We do that every Monday. It's kind of like a 40k variety show. We talk about a lot of different stuff on there. So, and I do some product reviews for Games Workshop as well, which you can find on that channel, Grim After Dark.
Nice. Peter the Falcon. There's only a short tail of Peter. He's only been around for a little while. Hasn't made much of an impact on the world of competitive gaming. This gentleman, by the way, and I'm not sure what he's planning to do. I'm going to sell him because he's bad at it. That's true. He has literally spearheaded the innovation of statistical analysis within our great games of gaming. Literally took us from counting beans to statistical analysis the world over. People, gathering data on game systems, win-loss ratios, tournaments and winning positions, first round losses. All these things have been innovations that Peter the Falcon, who's part of this amazing show, is bringing with us. But Peter, anything else you want to tell them about yourself?
I mean, yeah, from a Warhammer Fantasy Battle perspective, I started playing the game 15 years ago when my first son was born as a way to avoid doing other unseemly things. And I ran tournaments almost monthly, whether they were RTTs or what we would later call GTs, because it was very popular on the east coast of Canada. It was, about, God, I don't know now, 6 years ago, 5, a little, just under 6 years ago, I started and creating statistics for competitive Warhammer 40k. That grew very large. I ran a few podcasts with friends and fellow countrymen, and took a bit of a break the last couple of years and kind of focused on family and life and just kind of guest hosted on things. I am a part owner of goonhammer.com, so you can see a lot of my musings on there, especially for the old world, as I have started writing articles on that. I released my first one actually the day we're recording this podcast, and I've got about 8 more in the hopper. So I'm constantly on the go now. I've kind of gotten gotten some spirit back in me because Warhammer Fantasy Battle was my first miniature game, and it gives me goosebumps that it's back in whatever form that it has taken.
Beautiful to hear. Switching tacts. I suppose I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Warhammer 8th edition is where I started. I think I played maybe a month or two of 7th edition right at the end there. Things were quite messy. I was pretty new to the game, so I didn't quite understand how messy the game had become. But I was in there for the entire duration of 8th edition, and in the last year of 8th edition, I was getting extremely competitive and going to a tournament every week that I could. And then it died. And it hurt me so deeply and thoroughly and badly, and maybe that you can echo that. And I've harbored absolute resentment towards the world that I've been denied my one true love for the last 9 years and had to go and play Warhammer 40k at an international level, at a world level, at a WTC level, and I've become very successful at podcasting, streaming, commentating. So, woe is me indeed. But currently, right now, I am one of the commentators for Games Workshop's Warhammer 40k tournament circuit. They're also streaming a little bit of AOS. I'm trying to get better at that as well. Hoping, begging, praying that they'll let me stream some Old World content over there and run some tournaments adjacent to those 40k and AOS ones. But that is an absolute pipe dream of mine that hopefully comes to fruition, because nothing would bring me more joy than streaming some Old World content to the world. That would be absolutely thoroughly a dream come true. But apart from that, I was one of the, I suppose, faces of the LVO commentary team for quite a few years. If you know what the Las Vegas Open is at 140k, the biggest 140k singles event in the world. I've played in a couple of world team championships for Warhammer 40k. I'm very hoping I can do something similar for the Old World in the coming years. And yeah, very, very, very excited to dip my toe back into my one true love. It feels like I've just been, forced to be apart from where I was always meant to be, and feels like coming home, sitting here with these two lovely gentlemen. Let's talk about what we play. What are we going to be playing for the Old World, guys? What kind of flavor have we got? Danny, I know you're an absolute piece of crap and play High Elves. Please tell us some more.
It's true. I do have a High Elf army. I actually have all the elf armies. They're my favorite armies for fantasy.
Makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, it really does.
It's what a guy with glasses would do.
It's exactly right.
So I think to get started, I'm going to play my all-time favorite army, which is Dark Elves, a lot. And then I'm painting a Tomb King's army. So I'm just finishing up. I was lucky enough to snag the Tomb King starter from GW. They were nice enough to send us one to Grim After Dark. So I've been painting the Bone Dragon. He's very close to being finished. I'm real excited to get him done.
Fantastic. I might pick your brain on the contents of that box in a minute. But Peter, what are you planning to play?
Well, I have like an outrageously large Lizardmen army because that was the army I played through the end of 7th and all through 8th in the end times. I do have a small amount of orcs and goblins that I'm going to be building up as well because I'm pretty excited to get some of those models on the board again. So those will probably be my starter too. I'll have the Lizardmen for general play and whatever tournaments allow them, which I assume will be all of them.
Yeah.
And then I'll have orcs and goblins as my side project.
Now you opened a little bit of a can of worms there. You want to speak to? Let's be our first hot topic debate right on the first episode. Come,
we're getting into it early, yeah.
Strong,
so
with possibly getting ourselves in trouble. What are you talking? What are you referring to there, mate?
Oh, so months and months ago, Games Workshop announced that their plan for the first season of the Old World was going to be only 9 factions, and they listed them out to us, but that the rest of the factions from Warhammer Fantasy Battle would be receiving an army update via PDF. And unfortunately, I think I knew, I was telling many people for a bit now that my expectation was they were going to kind of try to poo-poo you from playing them outside of friendly games. And yesterday, they released an article, Games Workshop did, where they said that legacy armies were not going to be allowed at their events. And the expectation was that you shouldn't play them in tournaments because they are not going to be being provided any updates or models in the future, and there won't be any balancing done to them, et cetera, et cetera. And it did not go over very well. I've been following a lot of people in the like old world Twitterverse and Warhammer Fantasy Battle Twitterverse and other social media, and it was kind of like an immediate, what do you mean? It didn't go over well at all. It felt like it was an unnecessary thing to say because like Warhammer World has kind of always done their own thing, and I assume that that's really the only place that's going to fully implement that. I know a lot of people were very disappointed to have that said. I'm still going to be cleaning up my Lizardmen, getting them rebased, but it doesn't feel good to have that statement be made. So.
I literally had somebody ask me that question and I said, Adam, what do you think about GW coming out and saying this? And I posted that gif of Jeremy Clarkson being like, oh no, anyway. Because I was like, oh, the community's, it sucks, but I feel like the community is not going to cut off, half of the player base because they won't be allowed to play their factions. So at least that's my gut feeling. Yeah, Danny.
I agree with you, Adam. Like, I think a lot of people, their initial reaction, like, especially if they're, I mean, this just brings back what we all experienced in 8th edition, which is we kind of had to write our own rules a lot.
Yeah.
But it's really disappointing because Games Workshop right now has the ability to like actually sponsor this game and do the things that caused Warhammer Fantasy Battle to die. Like they have the ability to fix that. And this is like closing this door so early and so quickly is such a mistake, especially when things are happening like the rulebook sold out of stock on their online store. That should show you the popularity of this kind of a game.
As far as I can tell, Australia is sold out of the old world products. And we're not getting the stuff till weeks after the rest of the world. We are like 2 or 3 weeks after everybody else, and we're still sold out instantly, as far as I can tell.
Well, I saw like Element Games, which is one of the, if not the largest retailer in the UK, weren't going to be doing online sales because they just weren't afforded enough stock. They only were afforded enough stock to hit the majority of their pre-orders. I know that like in my core group of guys, they all logged into the website like the second the sales started, and only 2 of them were able to buy anything. And it was like a box of Bretonnian peasants and some magic cards. Because things sold out so fast. There is this huge, like, I don't know if they fully, and maybe they do, but like they fully get how big a deal this is for a lot of us to get back into this. Because like people weren't buying Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and it was mainly because GW wasn't really good at selling it to new people, and this is their opportunity to do that. Yeah. So
they really, really weren't. And there's a multitude of different reasons. Maybe we might even have an episode right now on what they need to do differently to have that not happen again, which are already making some great inroads. But yeah, I'm fully of the opinion that outside of Warhammer World, no one is going to care. Just so we're clear, we all have access to the rule sets for every faction, and including the legacy ones. They're no less than the others. Apart from the Ravening Hordes, the extra little bits and stuff that Tomb Kings and now Bretonnians have on release, they are not at a lesser level of rules, density, complexity to any other faction. There is no reason to exclude them at this stage. There's literally no reason, right?
I don't have them, so I haven't seen them yet. But I believe that from what I've heard from other people.
You mean the legacy armies? You have the rest, correct?
Yeah. No, I have the full normal armies, and they're all what you would expect from those products. So, but I suspect that they're not any different. Like the legacy,
no.
Right?
I mean, I've had the legacy PDF now for 2.5 weeks, I want to say. And I've had the opportunity to play some games with other people that have had it, and to like discuss the units and talk to a playtester or two, about like and the thing is like these armies were all pretty heavily play tested. The rules team put a lot of effort into these legacy armies. You see it when you're reading the PDF. If you look at
so apparent.
If you look at like the demons entry, Chaos Demons or Lizardmen or Dark Elves, and then compare it to any of the things from Fantasy Forces or from Ravening Hordes, there's no difference. They are exactly the same. The power levels, I would say, and like preface this with, I've put in maybe 8 games of this like over the last couple of weeks because it is hard to find people that also have an NDA
Correct.
to play against, right? But like in those games, I played 2 against Danny. I played a few against some other people. Like I haven't seen a gross imbalance. The game feels extremely balanced outside of a couple of outlier units, but the army rules themselves are so solid, and that goes for the legacy armies as well.
Well, awesome. This is the thing that bothers me as well. So we all know through 40K stuff, through connections and old world and stuff, and seeing behind the curtain, so to speak. I have some confidence in saying the next statement in that I don't believe there is another game that at launch has been as thoroughly play tested and balanced as the old world has been by Games Workshop. And so I have a lot of confidence, especially now that I've seen the rule sets for every faction, that there's kind of no reason to not let every faction coexist right now. They are all kind of starting off at the same level. And of course, Bretonnians and Tomb Kings get a little bit more. But that is because they're like in the launch boxes and
they have the arcane journals, which the other factions will get.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
And the thing is, those arcane journals, if you've had a chance to go over them, anyone listening, I mean, the 3 of us have, they're more like side grades, right? They're just unique ways to play those armies outside of their main core book.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I haven't seen anything in there that's like outrageously busted. Danny and I played a game with the mortuary cults, and there was a moment where I was like, I cannot understand how you resurrected so many guys this turn, because it blew my mind. But at the same time, like the game when it ended was 100-point difference because I failed like 4 leadership tests in the last turn. So it's not like the army itself was like mind-blowingly busted. It just did some really cool things that I did not expect.
Well, that's what I've seen from the Arcane Journal so far. They are adding flavor notes to a faction. They're not necessarily increasing power of a faction, or they're creating a more dynamic army design there. So they're giving you flavor notes to add to things. So it's actually, funnily enough, it's actually quite similar to what they're doing for Age of Sigmar and what they're doing for Warhammer 40K, where they give you kind of a different package to build your army into, build your faction around, rather than the one just in your faction.
I mean, it's literally like taking new detachments, right? Like it's almost exactly the same kind of concept that they're bringing out in 40K, and it works so well.
It's so much more perfect for the fantasy and the old world, the way the game is played, designed, and feels than it is to 40K, I believe.
Yeah, I feel like the choices they made, especially with the 2 arcane journals we've seen so far. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? Like they were very deliberate, right? Like the buffs certain units get are definitely offset in other ways. And they don't like I said, they don't feel more powerful per se, or less powerful. Like the Bretonnian Exiles is just a really cool way to play Bretonnia, I think. It's kind of like Bretonnia with an Empire light side, which I like a little sprinkling of Empire in it.
So cool.
And it is really cool. And I love like the exiled vows and things like that they've added. I feel like they've, we started with a poo-poo on this whole statement of legacy armies, but I need to say it, like, at least in my short time with these books, like this isn't a really well put together game. I have very few complaints.
Totally agree. And the reason I wanted to speak to this right now is because I have some people that I know who are assuming legacy armies get less than supported armies on release. And I'm here to say 100% not, apart from the Arcane Journals, every faction has about exactly the same support on release. And that is kind of stunning to me, to be honest, that they went and did so much of this effort only to close the door on the factions like day before. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. You put in the work, put in the value into the product. Why do this? It's bizarre.
Adam, I know a lot of people speculate that's because they don't want like model range sharing, like between AOS, because they've used a lot of old fantasy models in AOS, right? For that's like true. Cities of Sigmar and some of the other factions, but it doesn't actually hold any weight if you actually look at what ranges do get shared between the 2 games. Like the entire Beasts of Chaos range is shared between like, and then you have stuff like, of course, demons get shared between like every games that Games Workshop does. You've got forest spirits that get shared between Wood Elves and the Sylvaneth. Like Warhounds get shared. Like there are so many examples of different units that end up getting shared between the armies. It just seems like such a silly thing to want to try and like divest yourself of. Create models that you've already spent a lot of money making that would fit perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm like those new Seraphon models they released for those lizardmen are so
amazing.
gorgeous, and I would buy a ton of them. If I felt like it, if they were like lizardmen are one of the core old world books, we're definitely going to give them all sorts of love. I would refresh a ton of my army. Those Croxagars are so much more beautiful than the ones I own. The Saurus Warriors, maybe not the Saurus Warriors because I own just too many Saurus Warriors. I would be very, very hard. But like the Chameleon Skinks and things like that. Like if you look at an old world Chameleon Skink and compare it to the ones that they got for AOS, there's no competition.
No.
The old world Chameleon Skinks, they look like they've had some issues. Like they've seen a little too much.
some mileage.
They've seen some mileage. And it's the same, and it's what shocks me a little bit about like some of the choices they made for the Tomb King and Bretonnia re-releases, where when I was looking at the skeleton guard that some of my friends are painting up that they received from GW and just being like, oh yeah, that's an old model.
Yeah,
like
let me tell you.
As a bow-legged little dude with some real big mold lines.
I mean, Danny's staring at him right now. Like, the mold lines on those spears are like thicker than their ankles.
Dude, yeah. And not only are the skeleton horses are so bad.
So bad.
But hey, look, the more I look at them, the more they grow on me just from like a nostalgia point of view, I guess. Yeah. But like at the same time, I can't imagine that I'm gonna not replace this later on if I really want to with like Prince or something if they aren't going to release an updated skeleton kit.
That's fair. I mean, but the thing is, they've gone through and done all that in the AOS side of things. Like we have new zombies, thank God.
Yeah.
And all those things. And this brings me to I think actually the best example, apart from demons that you gave Danny, is actually ogres, which is the army I'm going to be playing, which is Peter and I are both playing what would be considered legacy armies, and we have very little fear about being able to find people to play. So by all means, if you are sitting writing an angry dossier right now, compiling all of your grievances against GW across the last 9 years, do not fear. I believe you're going to be just fine. The wider community is more than happy, I think, to adopt you, bring you into the fold. But that entire range is cross-populated between Age of Sigmar. I don't think without a single model of Deviants, to be honest.
They just released new Gorgers.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Oh my God, yeah, gorgeous. Handsome Gorgers. It's like handsome squeak.
and Gorgers in the like legacy document have some pretty cute rules. Like I was looking at them, and I was very much like, if you dropped one of these in my backline, I would be very upset.
It's rough. Yeah. It's rough. They're a little pricey from me doing my own internal analysis. They're a little on the pricey side, but I think they're still actually a value piece. I think they're pretty cool. And plus, just give me those new models. Give now.
I think the only problem with them is that ogres have like a million ways to either Vanguard or Scout. Like you can make a 2,000 point army that only Vanguards and Scouts if you wanted to.
I have a Word document right now that has a list written down. There's like 3/4 of this can just Vanguard or Scout, whatever, whichever one I want.
Well, I don't like that at all.
These ogres move fast. They definitely do.
Yeah, it says the Wood Elf player.
Hey, Lizardmen, and yes, I was going to run 200 skinks, and then I changed my mind because I only own 120.
Oh, you're a nice guy.
Evil. You are. Yeah, you're just a man of the people there, Peter.
Exactly.
Eternal fortitude. Anyway, so that's actually a pretty good introduction to who we are. There's plenty of banter in there, which is what hopefully you guys can come to expect. Part one of this show, like I said before, the modus operandi is to keep you guys informed about the game as much as we can. We're going to be going through, in our very first episode that will be coming later this week, we're going to be going through the first kind of portions of the main rulebook, talking about what are the major changes from 8th edition, giving you a kind of a brief, rundown of how to play the game, as in like, this is the phases, this is what happens. You do, this is how some things have moved differently, like we explained, like how monsters move differently now with the lumbering, stuff like that. And then, literally unpack how to play the game. We're going to be doing that for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to move on to faction spotlights, army spotlights, and that'll be directed by people in our patrons. It'll be like, yo, I'm going to put up a vote post in our Patreon, be like, which faction should we do first? And then whichever faction gets the most patrons saying this one, that's the one we're going to be doing first. And then over on part 2, we'll be probably writing some army lists for those factions and or talking about how to get the most out of each phase of the game while we review the main book. And then past that, it's just wide open, baby. We're going to probably be talking about tournaments we're attending, armies we're playing, lists we're writing, and the rest. But right now, we are going to give you a good solid 10 minutes of our hot takes of the game as it stands right now from our experience. I have not yet played a game of the New Old World. These two gentlemen have played quite a few, so they have a lot to give us. And I'm going to be kind of taking the layman role. Like, I'm going to be asking a bunch of the dumb questions on purpose. Because unlike these guys, I haven't like blended the rule book up, put it into like a face bath and just soaked the whole thing in. I've skimmed through the rule book exactly twice. And so I haven't gone through with the fine tooth comb these guys have had to play games. Falcon, first thing off the top of your head, one thing you absolutely love about the New Old World.
Just like the combat phase in general. The new way break tests are kind of resolved, and how charges are resolved, the mathematics and the back and forth when it comes to figuring out how your units are going to align and how many you want in your front rank. Like it's a completely different beast than it was in 8th edition, and in basically any other edition. Like they've picked some of the best stuff from old editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle and then put their new twist on it. And I've been very pleased with it. I think it's like the highlight right now of the edition for me.
Danny, one thing you absolutely love.
For me, I think it's the changes to Magic that I'm really most happy with. Yeah, I actually am really happy with the changes to Magic. Magic like tended to get like the more of it you took, the more powerful it was, and that's not really necessarily the case anymore. I mean, you can miscast on dispels now, which I also kind of like, but otherwise you can dispel as many spells as you want with a level 4. So you don't have to like necessarily buy a ton of wizards and then kind of there was that game where you were bait out dispel dice and that kind of stuff. And that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm kind of sad about that loss of tactics, but at the same time, it's more simple. Like it scales really well. The spells aren't wildly powerful. Like they're really good. But they're not like, I'm going to win the game because I dwellered the level, I dwellered my opponent's level 4. So like that kind of stuff being gone, I think is awesome for the game. And the spells that are really good are also kind of hard to get off.
Excellent. Well, that bodes really well. I was going to have a go at you for getting rid of saying that it was fine for them to get rid of our little Magic phase, mini game, which I do absolutely miss. But I do agree, it was like when you played like a new player versus a veteran player, the new player would get absolutely bullied in the Magic phase. Like 9 times out of 10, they'd be like, okay, I'm going to cast 2 dice fireball. Would you like to stop this? And they'd be like, I'm going to stop that with 4 dice. And then they 6 dice purple sun, game's over. Exactly. That would happen all the time. Peter the Falcon, when unpacking what you were saying about the change, especially change in the fight in the charge phase, we have much shorter expected charges than we've ever had before. We've had before in many years in the game. Is that one of the things you've seen as a really good change?
Yeah, like I find that there's like a really interesting kind of jockeying turn 2, depending on what armies you're playing, turn 2, turn 3, where you're kind of repositioning, trying to keep like just barely outside of those charge ranges, so that you can hit your own on the following turn. I feel like there's a lot more trepidation, because like as I've been building lists and as I've been getting used to the way things play, steadfast is gone. So like there's a lot more of those, like if I get into this combat, like I can't just stick around, right? Because the break test has changed and everything else. Like there's a very good chance I'm going to be bounced back several inches. And what does that do to the rest of my army? Right. Like there's a lot of that on top of, this, I would say slightly shorter, charge range. Yes. Now it's your movement plus effectively a D6, but it's the higher of 2 D6 that you're rolling. So you're really only cutting, like your long bombs are gone, but your like the average roll is still only a couple of inches shorter than it would have been in the past. So what it does add like this extra layer, like this extra like setup round I find for a lot of armies where before they start trading big pieces, and I really enjoy that.
Well, exactly right. Well, there was a pretty high tier competitive 8th edition. The game came down to here we're going to have probably like 3 or 4 turns of jostling for position and redirection, and then it's going to be one explosion turn and the game is over. Like there's one big charge turn, which goes either one way or the other, and then the game's just done. There's no point to playing anymore. And it seems like there's a lot more of a even tempo to the old world now, where you've got more happening for more turns of the game because there's less of that. Okay, cool. Long bomb charge, breakthrough, game's over. I killed your biggest unit, and the game, your back is broken. The game is over. There's much more of, I feel like, from what you guys have described, especially to me, there's much more of an even tempo throughout the game. The more turns feel impactful. Is that safe to say, Danny?
Yeah, I think that, with the changes to how break tests work and kind of like units getting pushed back or falling back in good order when they actually like lose combat, there's not as many of these like massive swings of points like you used to see and that kind of stuff. So, which in turn, makes people want to take, I think, more things like banners and stuff like that, where they're not giving up those points quite as easily as they would be, because really the only time you're really going to get broken is if their unit strength is twice yours. Yeah. And then the fallback in good orders become actual breaking. So like big units, you do want some hammers that have some real high unit strength, or at least some backup dancers to help them break those big units.
Backup dancers.
You need some shock
heard that in ages.
I find. Yeah, you really need like, a really good cavalry unit now. Like I feel like a couple of the big changes are in 8th edition, I found there were certain cavalry units that were absolutely batshit insane, and then all the rest were garbage. Right. Now I find that basically every cavalry unit has a purpose.
Good.
Because of things like some of the new universal special rules, of which there are 76. So it's like they did not skimp. But things like first charge and counter charge and rules like that where you take away like rank bonuses from big units and such, it has such a major impact on like how like smaller units can can play into bigger squads. The fact that stepping up no longer happens, or it happens but not immediately any longer, is huge. So now like small elite units can go in and tear down a large unit, and you don't care about steadfast or anything because you've killed like their front rank, so only maybe one guy can fight back. Right. It adds a lot. But yes, the changes to falling back, where now you give ground or fall back in good order more often than not. It's a big change. Also, though, BSB only affecting panic and rally tests unless your Tomb Kings or vampire counts. Massive, because now that leadership is so much more important, and it's very hard to get leadership 10. There's only a couple of units in the game that have it.
Right.
So,
and it used to be that your entire army was leadership 10 all the time, every test, no matter what.
And you're generally steadfast or stubborn or something like that.
Correct.
And they've done a really good job of like, yes, there's this back and forth now, but also like there's a very real chance. There's like a good 20 to 30% chance most of the time where you will break, even when you feel good about how things went, because the BSB is kind of out of the picture because of things like that. And it adds like an extra layer of like fear, I find, to everything you do. Sure. Like you can lose a combat by one, and there is that butt clench that you really didn't have before when you were, leadership 10 rerollable or things like that.
That definitely was a fact.
Like you're only gonna break. So leadership in general is down, right? Like across the board, I would say. In some play, for some things, like the stuff that you would think traditionally has bad leadership, like actually probably doesn't have bad leadership, because you have things like Warband, and that kind of stuff that really kind of makes things a little bit more reliable. And that's kind of like the old Skaven strength and numbers rule that a lot of the kind of more savage armies get, I would say. But yeah, you still want a BSB though to reroll break tests.
BSBs don't reroll break tests anymore.
Yeah, they do.
No, it's just panic and rally.
Oh, we've got our first trouble in paradise.
Right.
Here we go. Who's going to win this round? Who's going to get the points?
Hold Your Ground says that any units within his command range can reroll rally and panic tests. In addition, for all friendly units in the battle standards command range can reroll the 2d6 when making break tests.
Oh my goodness. Did I just not read the last part again?
Wow. Danny 1, Falcon 0.
That's fantastic because I was neutering myself in all my games, including against you.
Oh yeah, probably then. Yeah, that would have been
Straight up.
But like,
it's day one, boys. This is going to happen.
Yeah, remember, hey, look, but it's not a 12-inch aura of that anymore, right?
No,
like it's only his command range, which is your leadership, which is your leadership value. So within like 8 inches, probably most likely for most BSBs is. But
doesn't it specifically call out BSB and general as being 12 always for command range?
Oh, that might be true.
Oh, yeah. Is it time to get Falcon's going to get a point back? Check it.
Yeah, that's correct. You're right. My bad.
1-1. It's a draw.
You got me.
All right.
Yeah, all right. Everything else says that. But like most armies, you have to pay for like a 200-point lord to get a leadership 9, and everything else is leadership 8. Danny is right in that there are some unique units that are like out there. Like I got a chance to run a giant recently, and I lost. They're hilarious and they are way better. But it was funny because I lost combat in this fight, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh shoot, I'm leadership 10. I don't give a crap about anything. This is amazing. Because like giants used to be garbage for leadership. Yeah. They were supposed to be stupid, right? Yep. Now does it like stuff like that? Really, I was like, oh, you guys put some thought into this now. You make me want to take this a little more.
Man, they put so much thought into the previous giant, but it just so happens that they were absolutely just had far too much red cordial that day. But mind you, back in the day when you had like your fully kitted blender lord, you get stuffed in a bag. You're just like, take that.
The one thing I will say, and someone is going to have to look this up for me. So all of the giants have this thing where it's like you can choose, instead of making your regular attacks, you can choose to use the giant chart or use the pickup end rule. I have not seen any place where giants actually have an attack characteristic.
Oh, really?
So I don't know like what the regular attacks are for a giant. I cannot find them anywhere. They don't. Oh,
I thought they just did the swing or the pickup, like the chart or the pickup. I didn't think they could attack with their.
Well, I agree, but when you read,
you're right.
When you read it, it's like you like instead of doing your normal attacks, you could also choose to do one of these things. But the way it's worded, it's like you could also just do your regular attacks. And so for a long time, I was like looking through the profile for all the different giants to be like, okay, where are my regular attacks? Because I really just want to swing. I don't want to end up belly flopping this guy and doing one wound.
I'm sorry, you're just going to have to belly flop.
Yeah, you have to belly flop.
Yeah. You're not allowed to die.
Because you're always going to roll belly flop. When you want anything else, you're just like, well, I guess I'm going to do one wound to you, dude. Great.
He's going to just do the worm.
Yeah.
The general's like, can you charge giant? And he's breakdancing.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Danny, one thing you do not like about the old
world. Other than the aforementioned, renegade races, as I think Val has gotten to call them. I like that terminology instead of legacy factions, the renegades. Mm-hmm. Other than that, the only thing that I am a little annoyed about is variable base sizes on the same unit. I really don't like that. I'd rather it just be one or the other instead of choosing which base size you get to put your unit on.
You got an example for us?
What's that?
You got an example of what you mean?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, let's take the giant is a great example of that. You can put him on a 50 by 50 or a 50 by 75.
Okay.
And that changes the way that he is. Also, you have stuff like Beastmen characters, for instance, can be on 30 by 30s or on 25 by 25s. You choose what to put them on. So do you do that during the game, or do you do that when you bring in the army, and then that changes how they fit into units and that kind of stuff? So there's that. The other thing is there's a little bit of inconsistency between different units. that can make it a little bit confusing. And this kind of falls into that basing issue as well. For instance, like I found out that like most chariots or a lot of heavy chariots don't have swift stride, but some of them do. Yeah. And almost all the light chariots have swift stride, but like they're all still chariots. So you would think that they would. And then not all cavalry has swift stride either. Like stuff like that is a little strange sometimes. But I'm glad that they're able to kind of take some of those units and like make them unique in that way, like give them a little bit of a disadvantage so they're not too OP.
Yeah, I would say, like I mentioned earlier, 76 universal special rules. Like they were very purposeful with which ones you got for most units. But there is like a lack of uniformity with certain things. Yeah, I agree with that. Like where you do have to double check because something you might expect is just not there. So,
Falcon, one thing you dislike:
the magic phase, the lack of it.
The lack of, that was going to be my pick. That was going to
be I miss it a lot.
Me too.
Like I agree with parts of what Danny said. Like none of the magic feels overly broken anymore, which is great because that was the problem with the magic phase was 6 dice skilling some things in previous. But I do miss that interaction because what I've noted in my games is generally like the only strategy, if there is any, to the phase is, am I within 24 inches of your level 4 with my level 4. And then we both throw 2d6 at things for the round. And that could be 3 or 4 things, or if you decide to spam, it might be like 8 things. And like that's basically the extent of it. Like the whole strategy is now like, can I be outside of 24 inches for any of my casts so that I get off the things I want? And how do I stay within 24 to dispel? And like I don't know. I miss having like that back and forth with your opponent. And I get it. Like, yes, new players often struggled with it because you were trying to bait out dispel dice, bait out dispel scrolls early if you could do it. And there was the frustration of, somebody just being like, well, I'm going to toss all my dice at Purple Sun or Dwellers. And like I have nothing else. I get that. But now there's like, there's none of the spells that I've seen in the game where if you were like, I'm going to toss 6 dice at this, I would be like, well, that's it. Right. Like nothing is like that. There's a couple of them where it's like, well, I guess I'm going to lose 3 or 4 guys for sure now, but like nothing that's mind blowing. I feel like there's some unit abilities that are way scarier than the magic spells. So, but yeah, I do miss that interaction. I do miss it a lot. It's been like my one little frustration playing the game more than anything.
My one is so in Age of Sigmar and in Warhammer 40k, the community has informed Games Workshop that a rule limitation on the number of certain units needed to be implemented. There was a time where in 40k, there was a Diptychon where every single player on the top tables just took as many flying hive tyrants as could fit. And then Games Workshop was like, we need to stop this because the game looks bad, the game feels bad, and it's just min-maxing on in the worst possible way. That is something that this game is open to, and I would have loved it if they closed that door in the design step, saying that because we used to have that, right? It was a rule of 3 per of a certain unit in special, and rule of 2 in rare. Yeah, was that correct? Am I crazy? Yeah, I just wish they put that in. And
I don't think it would be hard to implement. I think that would help a lot of. So I've already blocked it out because I imagine that no person in their right sane mind is going to allow me to take like 22 Tuskor chariots as an army.
I would.
But yeah, Adam, you're 100% right. That is a rule that needs to be addressed very, very badly. Even just a rule of 3. And I even think you need to limit core choices too. I think to a degree.
Well, so that's we are actually going to have a whole episode on this down the road, because one of the biggest things about Warhammer, the old world, is that you have this almost tax placed upon your army where you have to take a certain percentage of core. And one of the biggest defining factors in previous iterations of the game was the army that had the best core paid the least tax. If you had a good core unit that you had to take, well, your tax of 25% of your army is just not a tax. It's just good. And so we were going to sit here and at some point we will do this. We will debate who has the best core and try and, possibly even do a tier list of core choices of like, which armies are doing this the best and not paying the tax. Because it was such a facet for so many armies previously. Like if you played Skaven, congratulations, here are 120 Skaven slaves. Good luck to you, sir. I hope you like painting. Do you have RSI yet? No, keep going. Same for skeletons and zombies in vampire counts. You had to just take like 100 models, and it was a bit of a tax. There was a lot of fat on the bone, as we would like to say. But you're absolutely right. I think there are some, or not all core portions of factions are created equal. I do not believe they should be either. That's where we get a lot of thematic flavor and enjoyment out of the game, as having different levels and different internal balances. But 100%, I think special needs a limitation of only 3 of any one choice. Like I shouldn't be able to take more than 3 units of Man-Eaters, stuff, 3 units of Mournfang, stuff like that. Same as an Ogre player. And same with red choices. You should have a limitation on this is how many you get to take of one single choice. Like I don't want to see 3 stacks. Nobody wants to see 3 stacks.
And it's interesting because a lot of the army books do have limitations built in.
They do.
But for every limitation they have units where they just didn't put one in, and you're just like, but why? Yeah, why is it that I can only take 2 like Hellstorm rocket batteries or whatever?
That's points or whatever. Yeah.
Which is okay. Like they're not like when I looked at them, I wasn't like, oh God, I hope I don't fight against 18 of these. But I can run into 12 gyrocopters.
Right.
That is insanity to me.
Yeah.
And then a couple of them that have limitations. Well, I don't know if they're problematic per se. The limitation just doesn't feel like a limitation. Like they're like cannons. Empire, great cannons. You can take 6 of them at 2,000 points. And so, well,
that's not a limitation. That's just 6 cannons.
That sucks, man. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody that's just like, shit, I had 3 more cannons.
My 7th cannon. Oh no, my 7th cannon. Whatever shall I do?
Yeah.
Pour one out. Pull out the little violins, everybody. We are going to give one hot take each, as in like one hot take to inform you about something that we have discovered about the game that you may not know. Danny, kick us off.
I think reserve move is the best like special rule in the whole game.
It is a good rule.
Explain.
So reserve move lets you, if you didn't march, you can make another normal move at the end of the shooting phase. So after you get to see what everything in your army has done during the shooting phase, you can move your unit again, which lets you kind of take advantage of holes that you might have punched due to panic tests or failed, like that kind of stuff. And like it really kind of just lets you wait and see what's going to happen, and then you can choose to leave if you want to. Especially for units that have like skirmish and reserve move and that kind of stuff are particularly brutal.
Yeah. So we would call this fire and fade or shoot and scoot in other iterations. And so now it's, it's the reserve move. Falcon, what's your one hot take?
Oh my goodness. I thought I already said it.
Just one?
Yeah. Pick another one. I don't know. Make it up. I don't care. No one else knows anything about the game yet. You could say anything right now.
I literally could say anything. I
like Archeon's rules.
I also don't think any of my I also think all of my takes are super good. Like that's the thing. Like I don't think I've said anything that's going to blow anybody's mind.
Only premium takes.
Only premium takes.
Yeah.
I am a really big fan, if we're going to do a special rule, a universal special rule, of evasive. I love it. It pisses people off to no end, and I love it. But luckily, they were very smart about it, and there aren't a lot of super long range units that have evasive, because I think otherwise, like you just have aneurysms at the table. Evasive is a rule where once per turn, if you target a unit that has evasive in the shooting phase, it can choose to fall back in good order before you get to shoot, so it can run away 2d6 inches. And like it doesn't say anything about the unit getting to pick a new target. So you can really screw up like a big shooting unit's like whole turn by just like ducking behind a forest or outside of their range, or just putting them at like a much larger minus than they would have been previously. Yep. And I really like that. It's a cute special rule that it's like my little pocket special rule that I really enjoy. As a Lizardman player, Chameleon Skinks have it, which isn't that amazing because their range is so small that oftentimes using it isn't going to be a major impact. But I just like it. This is cute.
Yeah, very cute. My hibbity hot take is that terrain is going to matter for the first time in a long time. Line of sight.
Oh, yeah.
The differing ways line of sight now works in the game is that's going to be a thing. People who are just coming from Warhammer Armies Project, Kings of War, or 8th edition, 6th edition, whatever you've been playing, it's going to be very different. It's going to be very different. Especially if you are a very shooty army, your opponent now has a lot more ways to stop you from shooting things that they don't want you to shoot. So you're going to have to clear chaff. You're going to have to shoot through nonsense units in order to get to the juicy stuff, which I think's more thematic and more interesting for the gameplay anyway. And I think hills, a huge deal. Hills are actually impactful, which is great because they literally did nothing until people put a bunch of different special rules on it, like saying, this hill is infinitely high. And you're like, what? Higher than Everest? Yes, this hill is high. In fact, higher than Everest. This hill is the highest peak on this Earth. It is an Olympus Mons of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Yeah, hills are massive. If you're playing any kind of shooting army, you desperately want one in your deployment zone if you can get one.
Correct.
It's great.
Yeah, so terrain is going to matter for the first time in a while. I used to love it being like, my opponent would come up and be like, yo, do you want to decide what these terrain pieces are? And we'd roll up and be Sinister, and we'd have a Wildwood, and we'd have a fear-causing thing, and then we would completely forget all those things. And
right.
We in the end, we'd be like, oh no, we forgot it was a Sinister monument, and we didn't care. Nobody gave any shits about terrain rules in 8th edition.
Unless you got magic
really
portal.
remembered that I had a venom thicket because I could bring a free one when I brought Wood Elves. So
yes, exactly right. Wood Elves were the only terrain enjoyers of 8th edition.
I will say, like, you can make a Wood Elf army now that is going to be very frustrating if you don't bring a bunch of forests with you to the tournament. Because
it's going to be
tree singing is hilarious.
It's going to be interesting to see how tournaments go, these first press tournaments, and how much more terrain and more thematic boards we need to build. I think that's going to be a very exciting thing to discover.
I do like that they kind of put in the rule book, they recommend 6 pieces of terrain. I do love the terrain rules. The one thing I didn't like was I love that what forests do now, other than they're kind of loosey-goosey with it, where they're like, you and your opponent decide what it does, if it's going to be difficult, dangerous, or impassable. I would have liked, and maybe someday we'll get a tournament pack where they're more specific. Like I would have liked like a little bit more specificity.
Same. Yes.
Where they're just like, if you put 3 forests on the table, you roll, and on a this or this, it's this. Just to have at least something a little more firm. Just because we come from a 40K world where we tried that at one point, and there's always going to be somebody that'll use terrain to their advantage over everybody else, right? So
yeah, correct. What I actually want, and this is pure, actually, no, I'll save it for another. We can wish lift and try and pontificate upon what a GT pack, what a tournament pack for the old world would look like in a future episode. But that is actually, we're going to wrap it up. We're done. That's it. The first episode. We're done. It's enough. Enough gold.
But there's so much more, Adam.
Shush, they can wait until later in the week.
There's several hundred more pages of things we have not talked about.
It's correct. We haven't even cracked open the book and started the man reads page portion of the podcast. But on that note, we're going to wrap up this first introductory episode. Hopefully that gives you a little taste, a little tease of what you can come to expect from that Old World Charm podcast. And we're going to leave you with some closing thoughts. Mine are, don't get swamped down in the negativity. There will be a scene. There will be a place for you to enjoy and play and revel in the old world. So I think you should go out and paint and play and enjoy whichever army or faction tickles your fancy. Maybe don't go and buy 4,000 points of said faction. Maybe temper your excitement a little bit. But if you want to play it, go and get 2,000 points of an army that you would like to play, you would enjoy, and that you would have fun modeling and hobby. And that should not be denied to you in any way. And I do not believe the community is going to be turning their backs on you. And that will be what we will be pushing on this, that this is an all-inclusive game, and this is an all-inclusive community, and all factions are welcome. Falcon, closing thoughts.
Fantasy Battle's back, guys. And I'm just so excited.
Really? Is it back?
I have not been.
You sure?
I've not been more it's been a couple of years since I've been excited about miniature gaming, and I am like really into it. I'm painting models again. I've been going over to friends' houses and playing games of 8th edition. I've been just like chomping at the bit for my NDA to be released so that I can go to my friend's house and be like, let's talk about what your army does now. And now I can, and I'm so excited. Like, I'm just
just a little closing thought. So Dark Angels are about to, I've got a whole new Dark Angels on my main army in 40k. They're about to get a bunch of new models. They all look absolutely stunning, and they're getting a new codex. Couldn't give a shit. I'm cracking open my 25, 30-year-old Warhammer Fantasy models, and I'm more excited about them than this new 40k hotness. Never heard of you, Unforgiven. Never heard of you, Lion. Whatever. See you later. You're in the back seat now. Danny, you're close.
Dude, Adam, I feel exactly the same way. When I actually got the rules in the email, my wife was like, "Why are you so happy today?" And it was like, the clouds were gone. A ray of sunshine came out, hit me right in the face, and I was ready to play fantasy again. As far as closing thoughts go, like, there's a lot of stuff in this game where it seems like it's insurmountable or unbeatable, but don't forget that there's a lot of counters in this game, and you don't actually have to fight everything in your opponent's army to win the game very convincingly. So just don't fret too much. It might seem like things are really stupid or really overpowered, but really this game is very balanced. From what I've seen, like, everything plays really well, and it's so much fun. And that's really kind of what I'm most excited about, is just getting some games in.
Oh, yeah. Freaking tastic. I can't wait as well. On that note, gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so very, very much for joining us on this very first episode of That Old World Charm podcast. Hopefully you'll come over and join us over on Patreon. Please wait and look forward to our next episode coming later this week, where we're going to be doing our first a little bit of review on that core rule book, or we call it the BWB, the big Warhammer book, or the big BRB, big blue book, or whatever. Something. We will find a dumb acronym to fit for purpose. Falcon, Danny, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this adventure. Been absolute gents, and we'll see you guys later in the week. Take care. We love you all. Do you think, guys?
Bye.
You've been listening to That Old World Charm with those charming chaps, Adam, Danny, and Peter the Falcon. Thanks ever so much. Cheerio.